Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Micro-School. Today's speaker is Dean Brandt. Dean is a PhD student in Stellenbosch. He did his BSc and his honors at WITS. His master's at UKZN and is now based in Stellenbosch. And today he wants to give us an introduction to note-taking with Obsidian. Yeah. And since this is a micro school, also the introduction should be micro, yeah, so that we don't steal into Dean's precious time. So Dean, I don't know if you want to share your screen. I'm not sure how you want to proceed. You're welcome to start.
Sure, thanks, Prof, for the introduction, and welcome everyone. Yes, today the topic of the micro school is on Obsidian and note-taking with Obsidian. And for those who don't know what that title means, Obsidian is a note-taking app, and it's completely free and accessible on all platforms, even on your phone. It's just a very, very useful app, and I know that also part of its infamy is that it's very difficult to get started with. So today is just going to be a very quick catch up to speed on how to start using it for all the notes that you want to take, and some explanations about why you would want to switch over from whatever good cultivated system you have into using Obsidian instead of whatever you already are using. So to get started with Obsidian, really is as basic as just going to the website obsidian.md or just searching for Obsidian and then downloading it. But before I get into all of that, I want to explain what it is, why it's different, and why you would want to switch to it. So just to kind of paint a picture for why your current note-taking system isn't going to be quite as good as Obsidian, is that, for an example, I imagine most people would use something like Microsoft Word documents or Google Docs or some just text-based, sheet-based note-taking system. If you use a digital one, if you use good old pen and paper, then this will also apply to you. That you'll probably notice that they very quickly stacks up all of these folders and all of these files that are tucked away, hidden away, and all these things, and it's very difficult to rifle through them and shuffle through them to find what you're looking for. You can imagine if you have just normal old school pen and paper written notes in notebooks, even from just with the example of your coursework, then you might have your physics book, you have your calculus book, you have an algebra book, and all of the different notes that you have from class are all in those different ones, and then they're all in chronological order when you had the different courses, and then all the different lectures, and then when you do your homeworks and your assignments and everything like that, it's all structured in that kind of very top-down hierarchical way of all the notes in their sections, in their books, in their, you can highlight it, you can tag it with sticky notes, all that, but it gets very cluttered, and then you have this whole big pile of notebooks, and then you don't really know what to do with it, especially if you working through a specific problem in something like a physics problem, something with electrodynamics, and then you're looking for something in, oh, I remember in maths we learned about Stokes' theorem. Where was that note again? I can't really find it. Let me go pick up my calculus book and then rifle through all of those notes, and then it becomes a little chaotic. And you can imagine a similar thing with your Google Docs if you're working on a project and then you're busy typing it out, or you're doing some research on something, you're going through all of these websites, you're going through all these textbooks, you're going through all these research papers, and you're taking all your notes on them, but then you kind of forget where they are, and then you have to go through Google Docs, and then you're looking through all the files, and then it just gets very hard to keep track of and find them. Or even if you are a little bit more fancy with your note-taking, you might use something like Notion, which has similar problems because it's still that folder and file-based system. What Obsidian does differently is it is much more like a personal Wikipedia in a way, where if you go onto a Wikipedia page, for example, here, like the Obsidian as in the actual volcanic glass, then you can see that it has all of these links to all these different things. So if you were looking up about this and you forget, oh, what is something special about aluminium, then you can go here and you can click to it, and then you can go to the whole aluminium page, and then it's all there. You don't have to worry about, oh, what book was it in, what folder was it in, I just needed to know this small thing about it. How do I find these things? With Wikipedia, then it's very different, and it would be kind of nice to have them both together like that. If you could have a Wikipedia of your own Google Docs or something. That is essentially what Obsidian is, that it offers this kind of built up structure that you can have where you link between different notes and you link between different sheets that you make or different files. Also, what makes it very useful, and is probably one of the more famous parts of it, is this idea of its graphs, where you can have these maps of content of these graphs that link together, and then you can see all of the links between all your notes, and then you can kind of track them through that. I'll get more into that when we actually use the app and when I show you how to get started with it, but these are kind of the big selling points of it. But yeah, enough with the website for now. But yeah, it is very good, very easy to get started. It's completely free. They do have, you might get worried about this pricing tab. They do have an offer service where it syncs your notes, where you can sync it between your laptop and your phone and things like that. You don't have to do that. It's works perfectly fine without any of that. That's just a bonus if you want to do it, but you can do it completely free, completely locally hosted and everything like that. And I'll show you some other ways that you can do the syncing as well. But for now, let me switch back to Obsidian, so you can skip a few steps to when it is fully downloaded and set up and opened. And this is the first screen that you'll see once you set up the app, because also it'll ask you to create your first vault. And what it means by vault is just this big overall folder that you use when organizing everything. Within your vault, that's kind of, you make it, you put it somewhere in your documents or whichever folder you want, and then it's just there. You don't have to worry about it again. You won't also have to really worry about switching between vaults. You won't need a vault for physics, a vault for calculus, a vault for algebra. It's all supposed to be all in one place so that they can connect and interlink, and that you don't have to worry about this infinite notebook problem, that you can have everything just in one place. And also what makes it very useful is that the vault is actually just a folder on your computer, because all Obsidian files they're not some proprietary .docx or something. They are in Markdown files. And for those who are not familiar with Markdown, you might be familiar with it from something like you might have seen in previous mini schools, micro schools with Jupyter notebooks. When someone's coding in Python and they have these little cells, then all the text there is written in Markdown. And Markdown is essentially just a really, really nice upgrade from a very basic text file, where like you have some customization in your Microsoft Word document that you might not have in a basic .txt file. You can make your headers, you can make your little quote blocks, your code blocks, your bulleted list, your checklists, everything like that you can do in Markdown. And Markdown is a very versatile and extensible file system or file type. It's kind of everywhere on the internet. I'm sure you'll find lots of things. But here I've just got a Markdown cheat sheet just to show all the basic things that it can do. I'm sure you can find this literally just by searching for a Markdown cheat sheet. And then you'll just remember the syntax. Because here I want to just go into source mode for a second, and you'll see what I mean with that. Where here you can see all the different hashtag here, double hashtag for header 2, header 3, bold. You can make things bold, italicized, block quotes, make your lists, your code blocks, your links to things. All of these are just the syntax of Markdown that you will learn as you go along, because it's kind of the bread and butter of how you interact with Obsidian. But you don't have to worry too much about this. You can kind of just remember a header and then just write everything else in text, and then the rest will come as you need it. Where if you think, oh, how do I make a list again? Then you can just search for it, for how to make a list in Markdown, and then it'll come along very easily, and you'll build up those things. So you don't have to worry. It's not a new programming language that you have to learn or anything. It will come along with time. And to have cheat sheets like this is also very useful. So you can just hop over here and copy and paste. Also, a thing that I should mention here, where I went to this menu here, I went to source mode. There's two different viewing modes in Obsidian, where you might not want to see all of these headers and things, all these hashtags when you're looking at your notes, because it might look a little bit intense and complicated. But to be a bit more neat, you can put it into reading mode, where it's just compiled all of that and just put it into where you can see that headers are just headers. You don't need all of the hashtags to know that it's a header. All of the links are formatted as just links. They don't have the whole link to the actual website hidden away in them. But yeah, so essentially all of Obsidian is just in these Markdown files, and then you can start getting fancy with them and start building up your own kind of library or your own personal Wikipedia. And as a first example here, we've got these links, but these links with this little square, the arrow, those go to a specific website. And here you can see that there's this Markdown guide, this link that pops up. That's very useful to have, but those links are not really what you want to have. You don't want to be jumping around to a website every time. You want to have links within your own notes. The question in chat, not sure where you find the Markdown cheat sheet. This one was just, I searched in Google, just Markdown cheat sheet, and then the first link that came up, and at the bottom of that site, there was a file to download, but I'll link that in the chat soon, just to make it easier for everyone. But yeah, so from this welcome sheet, which is the first one that you actually have in your Obsidian vault, you won't have any of the Markdown cheat sheet or this templates folder. I'll get to that now. All you'll have is this first welcome sheet. It just shows some of the very basics of a header, a little italicized thing. And you might see that this link looks a little strange. It's a little darkened out because it's a link to something that doesn't exist as a note yet. And if I switch with just a hotkey of Control E or probably Command E on a Mac, I'm not really sure, but there's also a list of hotkeys, then you'll see there's a difference between this is a link here in square brackets with, in normal brackets, the link to the website. And that then gets hidden as an actual link that just has the actual URL suppressed. But then a link within your notes has these double square brackets around whatever bit of words. And then that is a link to another file. And if it doesn't exist yet, it'll just look grayed out like this, but it'll still be a link. And here you can see it's not created yet, but by just clicking on it, then that makes this folder, this file, makes it here in your file tree, and then you can start writing about it. And yeah, so that's kind of the basics of then how to do these linkings of these files. For an example that you might come across when you're busy making these things is you'll see that you work with a lot of similar structures of your files, because here it's just got this title and then it's just text. You can kind of write anything, but it might be nice to have this templated version where you've got a header, you've got a date, you've got your tags so that you can organize it, and then you've got some nice substructure headings of like you like to put your notes with an introduction and put a references at the end, things like that. Then that's where this templates folder comes in, where here you can configure your system to have a templates folder just in the settings menu. I'll show you how to do it now. But then with something like this, which is this core Zettel idea, and I'll explain what Zettel means as well. But this is just a rough template where you can see it's got these in double curly brackets, a date format to have the date here, and then the same thing with the time format and the title format here. And because it's in this double curly bracket form, that means that it'll kind of take those features and then put it into this template. The references will always be references and it'll always look like that, but the title will be relative to whatever title of the file you're working with. So if I have here a create a link one, then I can insert a template, which will also show another fancy feature that makes life a lot simpler in Obsidian. If you press Control P, then it opens up this command list that you can also get just on the sidebar here of open a command palette. And then it's just very useful commands that you might want kind of at your fingertips. If you forget a hotkey or something, you just put up Control P, and then you can search for whatever you want. Here, for example, is your templates, insert template. I click on that. I want this core Zettel idea, and then it creates that. And it puts the date here formatted and the time and the title that's claimed from that, and then put into this format. So then I can just start writing my notes. And you can make these templates for all your different kinds of notes. If you've got a specific one for a specific class, if you've got a specific one for a book review or book notes that you're doing, if you've just got an idea that you want to put, then you can make these different templates and make life a bit easier for yourself, that you don't have to create everything from scratch. Because kind of the name of the game with Obsidian is to never create things from scratch, or you only have to do it once. Because the idea that makes Obsidian really nice is that if you are working on, for an example, some research project that's based on a bunch of things that you've researched and about the things that you've heard about and these ideas that you know kind of roughly might connect, and you want to see how can they really link and how can they connect, and you want to write all about it. Instead of starting here with just a blank page and this blinking cursor that's really intimidating and makes you feel like you've got nothing, you can have your whole list of long notes that you can quickly jump to and then as a reference, and then see, oh, okay, I've already got all this research done on it. And then you can kind of connect those together. You can break up these pieces into modular parts instead of then saying, oh, okay, I need to write this physics problem and I need to have, for an electrodynamics problem, I need to know Stokes theorem. And then you don't have to jump into a whole other notebook, into your maths notebook, and then go and look at all of that and then kind of rip out the page and then put it in this new one or copy it word for word like that. You can very simply just link it to all of these different sheets and then jump across to those links, copy and paste what you need to, and then in your bigger works it can form like that. But you'll have these little building blocks. And with these building blocks, what you will see is this kind of graph view, where also just by clicking Control G as a useful hotkey, or you can click here on the sidebar for your graph view, and you can see how all of these different things connect. You can also control this a lot. Like, yeah, it looks like a very small graph view. It does get incredibly big with some people's volts, and you'll get used to that. You'll see bit by bit it grows as everything starts to link, and as you add new files and you add new hashtags and you add new things, but then you can see how all of these different things connect. And then usually what you'll begin to see is certain links that grow into then these kind of grouped sets of files that they all happen to talk about one similar thing. And then you can see, oh, I completely forgot that this topic links to this topic, actually, because they kind of use the same words, they use the same kind of ideas, but it's just not as obvious as of a linkage because you've got it in, oh no, this is only in my physics folder and this is only in my maths folder. But you might not know that some maths theorem actually is really useful to this physics problem because they talk about similar things. And then you'll be able to see these links much clearer like this. And then you can see what things you want to write on. So it just opens up your way of thinking and the way of connected ideas that you have, because the way your brain works, you don't have just your physics folder and your maths folder and your history folder. All of these things link together in your head, and this is a much nicer way to keep track of it all. And so for just some more examples of how to do these new links and new notes, you might be doing something on, for an example, that I do my work on quantum computing, and then say computing with quantum mechanics, for an example. And then for another thing that I might be working on some quantum mechanics, that I might be doing some, learn about some new maths concept like a commutator. That, yeah, I've used quantum mechanics just as a very basic example that is across two different fields and two different notes that here I would have no real way of knowing that they are linked unless I knew that in my head, but my notes wouldn't be able to tell me that if you've got this, for an example, in some Google Doc or Notion or something like that. But yeah, there's this useful also side menu here where there are unlinked mentions, where I can then create, when I want to do my notes on quantum mechanics, then already here it shows me, oh, in some other files, there are these mentions of it. So I can create this link here and I can create a link there. Then when I do go back to here, I can see, oh, my link has already been made. So that when I want to open up something about quantum mechanics, then I can go there and it's this connected node that's in my graph view. I'll see, oh, here's already a few files forming and a few connections that all link to this topic of quantum mechanics. This example will be much clearer once you've actually got some things in mind of some useful notes that you actually make. This is just for showing from scratch, if I can do it in one sentence examples, but it does build up very quickly and you will see these links become incredibly useful. Also, one thing that I did want to mention that's quite relevant is that I'm sure you will have experienced that it's not really the nicest thing to be doing any kind of maths-based or notes in something like a Google Docs where you have to then go insert equation and then it kind of looks a little bit chaotic when you're used to doing, for example, your homeworks or your research papers written in LaTeX. And a good thing about Markdown is that it does have LaTeX kind of built into it. Where here I can do maths typesetting by just putting up the $ notation, and then I can have my commutator of, say, x and b that's equal to I h bar. And then in my editor mode, then I can just see the maths is really nicely typesetted here. And then I can take this directly, this whole thing, and put it over into a LaTeX document once I've done researching about that. And once I need a specific section from that, I can put it into the project that I'm working on. So it is very useful for any kind of science-based thing, maths-based thing. Also then for code, where it's very, very useful for that, where you can have specific code blocks written in with your notes. If you're doing something on, you're researching about an algorithm, or you're doing something about like binary search or something, then with just these 3 backticks like that, then it creates this code block for you, where I can then say, create a function like in Python, and then that just does the basic hello world example. And then that will be a code block. Yeah, you can even get very specific with it and say, oh no, this is specifically for Python, and then it'll highlight the syntax for you as if you're used to then looking at your code. So it can do very many different things that you can't really do in something like Microsoft Word, which just makes it really useful as a general note-taking system. But never mind then this linking that you can have between different things and this graph view and this freeing up and opening of these ideas. And a very good system that it's kind of built around is going back to this core Zettel idea. Zettel might be a bit of a strange word if you're not really familiar with it in the note-taking world, but Zettel comes from this idea of Zettel custom, which is a note-taking system that was developed by a guy called Sonka Arons, and he talks about it in his book, How to Take Smart Notes. And it's a very useful note-taking system that made him a very prolific researcher, where essentially it was this idea of just, if you have some sort of idea, you just quickly jot it down and then you put it in Zettel custom. And a Zettel custom is just a slip box. So he would write down these ideas on a little sheet of paper and then put that in the slip box. And then through the day, through the week, through the month, whatever, he'd build up this idea of just having these little ideas and having these little things that he'd hear, things that he'd read, any little snippet of something. And then at the end of that, you can go through a review period where you go through each one and then you're like, oh, okay, I remember why I wrote this down, or I remember where I read this and what I was thinking about it. And then you can develop that thought, you can write more about it, and then you can research more things about it, and then you can file that into some sort of way, something like Obsidian. And then you do that with each of your notes, and then before you know it, you've got this whole stack of already developed, already worked through research ideas and written notes and processed ideas that you've then got some non-zero point to start from, where you won't have just some blinking cursor, but you'll have your whole graph view of all of these ideas of the little basic one sentence that you wrote down to how it then developed, and you can have your full few pages long research idea of how you were talking about this topic, or you learned something interesting in your physics class and then you wrote down all your ideas about it and your understanding, any notes to yourself about it. And then when you do have to write something about it, then you can just jump over into whatever this topic is and into its linked mentions, where you can see, oh, okay, I did link it to something, I did link it to this also, and then you can piece together all of these things so that you're never starting from zero. So I hope that you can see firsthand how much more useful this is than whatever siloed note-taking system you might have had before, where it's just folders and folders and files that don't really have any kind of logical connection to each other, except for the one that you know they should have. You will know that there should be this connection between physics and maths, but it doesn't show up within the notes itself. And here it will. And that's what makes it so ideal as a note-taking system. And it's all just kind of neatly mapped out in one place. A lot of people use this as a second brain system, where everything that you think about, everything that you write, everything that you read, you take down and you connect here. And it becomes very clear when you see how this network, this graph network, grows much bigger. It does start to look like a bit of a neural network, or even like on a universe structure scale with enough nodes into it. But I promise you'll get there, but you shouldn't be overwhelmed in that. Also, there's a lot of possibility to be overwhelmed by a lot of these systems and points here, because it seems like there's so many things to customize and there's so many different things to do. But what I've shown you now is kind of all you really need to know. You can add things like in your notes, you might have seen here, there's these hashtags. That's also just an organizational tool, so that in your graph view, you'll have this little green point, or then you can control how that looks, things like that. That's why I've also been pushing off looking at the settings menu this far, because it does get kind of intense, where you can change pretty much everything. You can change how all of these display things look. You can change how you deal with files, what they look like. You can change the appearance of things, the font size, the themes, anything like that, all of the hotkeys that you have to quickly open up things, quickly do things. Then you can also get to things like plugins, which get even more crazy with the kind of customization that you can do. And this is also where people kind of fall into a trap. Also, as you mentioned, there's community plugins where you can go and explore things that other people have made and then published as their own useful plugin. And this is very much similar to if you've seen the VS Code Micro-School, where it can get endlessly customizable. But I want to keep it simple here, because I don't want you to fall into a trap where you think that you need this perfect setup and this perfect note structure and this perfect everything before you take a single note, because the best system that you can use for this is the one that you actually use. It's not the one that you perfect through all of this research and how to take different notes and how to organize them and how to do all of these crazy things. It's supposed to be just kind of a messy system that bit by bit you see, oh, it'd be really nice for these to just be connected, or really nice for me to have just a kind of basic template that I can use, or really nice to have specific tags that organize my notes if I'm doing it for a specific course or a specific topic, or a nice way that you spot these things that work really nicely for you. That's how it should build up. And then if you're looking for a tool that can do that for you, then Obsidian will probably have that. And that's where it can get useful, but to not I'd encourage you to not go looking for that first and look at how to do the perfect note-taking system first, because it will build along as you go with it. And that's kind of the whole point. As the last little thing that I want to show you to link to another micro-school that we had, that is, you might be asking a question of, how can I use AI with this? Because it'd be very useful to have an AI system kind of built into your whole mini personal Wikipedia, that you're not jumping back and forth between a lot of things. And for that, I want to share another screen quickly, where it is in my VS Code, which you'll see is a very natural link, because it is only a folder that has Markdown files. That's all that your Obsidian vault is. It's not some proprietary Notion thing or some Google Docs that you can't work on in VS Code. But yeah, if you remember from the VS Code micro schools, you can have you can edit your Markdown in this. It's very nice and easy, and then you can already use your setup that you already used to working in. If you're used to working in the VS Code workspace, and then with something like Copilot, then I can quickly just come here and make. If I'm reading about the How to Take Smart Notes book, then I can say that this is a system. And then there you go. Copilot will kind of fill in this information for me, that I don't have to jump between so many different things, but that I can just kind of tab along. And here I would also encourage not to rely too much on the AI, because it's supposed to be your notes, and it's not just supposed to be something that you kind of copy and paste or have AI complete for you. It's a good starting point, and then you can refine it. But just to make things easier and more free-flowing and work a bit nicer together, then I'd suggest that this is a really nice way to work on it. If you don't want to learn a whole new app, then you can do it all from within this. But the Obsidian app does have a lot of nice features within it. Also, a nice system that I wanted to talk about, if you do want to sync these between different computers, like your work computer or your home laptop or something like that, and you don't want to pay for the sync system, another really good way around that is that, because it is just a folder and just has Markdown files, you can sync it all with Git and GitHub. It's very easy to just start a new repository and then publish it to GitHub, and then constantly git push and git pull to keep all of your notes in sync. And then every time that you're done taking notes, then you just git add, git push, and then they're all synced. And then when you go over to the other computer, you git pull, and then it's all in one place. There is also an Obsidian community plugin for Obsidian Git, where it makes it just nice and easy to literally right-click on files and then be able to say git add and git push and git sync, so that all of it works together. But yeah, this is a nice workaround if you want to stick with your VS Code for most of the bulk of the note taking. And sorry, it might have seemed a little bit chaotic. I didn't want to get to all the features, and I hope that I did that in a way that connects them all nicely. There are many, many, many more features that you can get into, and many more plugins and customization and different tools, and even like the Canvas example, which I'll show very quickly, just as a final thing to share, where it's very useful to have mind maps in something like this. So here I can go to just creating a new canvas, and then I can add a card here of my quantum mechanics notes, and then I can take out a mind map here. I can add a different card, or I can just add a note that I already have, and then that adds it in here, and then I can customize all of this. So it makes it very easy to really work within your notes and not have to jump around between so many different things, between your some note-taking, some mind mapping app, and your Google Docs and your university textbook PDF for your slides or things like that. But you can have all of it in one place, and it connects kind of seamlessly. And even from here, I can jump into that note, and then it all just works smoothly within itself. So I hope that this has been a nice, compelling argument for you to start using Obsidian and see how all of your notes really build up into something very, very useful, that, yeah, you'll wonder how you ever got by without using this. Yeah, if there are any questions, then I'd love to answer them and see what you think. Don't see any questions in the chat just yet. Or there we go. Okay. Do you have any plugin recommendations? Sure. So some of them that I like, let's just go have a look at the community plugins. Oh, okay, we'll start with the core plugins, where the really useful ones are. very useful one that I like is this canvas feature where you can make your mind maps and things that you'll see. That's kind of a built-in one that's already there. You can see here, there's possibly a few different ones, little useful things like word count, but the most useful ones are in the community plugins, where now I've activated that just as a safety thing. They don't have it on by default. Turn on, and then okay, it's already out. In the community plugins, you can see a bunch of different ones. Useful one that I like is just to have a calendar widget that's just built in here into this little side panel. That's just a nice way to keep a calendar also in your view, that you're also not jumping back and forth between things. Another useful one that I haven't gotten really into using all that much, but I know is very useful for other things, is this idea of data view, that you might want to organize things in tables, or that might seem reminiscent to something like Notion, where you can have these tables, you can have these kind of data sets that you keep track of everything with all of their different attributes. Then here is a way of doing that, where it just makes it nice and easy with the viewing to be able to see if you're keeping track of books that you've read and their ratings, or how long it took you, or how many pages they are, or games, or textbooks, or research articles, and which journals they're in, anything like that. Then the starter view one works really nicely. Kanban is also a useful one that is just if you're used to using a Kanban system where it's just these kind of columns of different things that you can have of your to-do list, you're doing your structured projects like that with these nice little checklists organized. You can build that into it as well. Git is a very useful one, which allows you to just control everything very much from within Obsidian, as you would have used with Git and GitHub kind of from VS Code. And yeah, then you do get into the theme settings where you can customize exactly how it looks, and there can get into a whole other can of worms. But yeah, I'd suggest going slow with the plugins for the beginning until you get really used to how you like your system to go, and then you can start looking at plugins and seeing what would be really useful for you right now. But yeah, it is very tempting to kind of go crazy and install all the plugins and then assume that it's going to work really well for you, but I'd be careful with that.
Okay, excellent. Dean,
yes.
Thank you so much. Is there any other questions maybe that I've missed in the Q&A or in the chat?
Just one more question from Eleanor about Zotero plugin, and I don't think that there is a Zotero plugin just yet, but there probably would be one, or it'd be fun to make one, or at least that's not too difficult of a system to kind of go back and forth between, of trying to organize your papers. I'm sure there's a nice way to export them all like that and do it that way. But I think that might be one where you just have to jump back and forth between the papers and then writing the notes there. But I think Zotero is nicely organized by itself, that I would use it, just the two in tandem.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to raise their hand or ask a question live? You just give opportunity to make sure that, look, I mean, all of you know where to get hold of us. So if there's anything else that remains, you know, any other information you need, then please get hold of us. Is there anything else, Dean, you want to cover, or shall we wrap up?
I think that's all. I believe there's a question here just of sharing the templates. I can share the templates that I have, even though they're not super extensive, and they're easy to make for kind of a custom-made thing for the templates that you like to use. But the one that I shared, I will quickly just copy and paste into the chat, because I know that might be a useful one just to see how it all works.
Maybe also, I'm not sure if you want to put your email address in the chat, so that if anybody, you know, thinks of any other questions,
yeah,
then they can just get in touch with you directly if you're happy with that.
Yeah, there's my email in the chat if you have any questions or anything else to reach out about.
Excellent. Okay, wonderful. So I think if there isn't anything else, thank you. I see you've ended right on time, so that's very kind of you. Thank you so much. If anybody else has any ideas of other micro schools we can offer, please, you know, if you have ideas of topics or yeah, presenters, please let Dean know, because we're always looking for people that have skills that they can share with others. So Dean, thank you very much for preparing and delivering this. We really appreciate. Thank you for your time, everybody. Thanks for your interest. And we hope to see you all again here soon. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have
everyone.
an awesome day. Thanks for the help. Take care. All the best. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.